Hey preschoolers, I have got another Paddington Bear story for you today, and this is called Paddington at the Tower. So let's see what happens to Paddington. One of the nicest things about being a bear and living with the Brown family was that most days Paddington was able to share his elevenses with Mr. Gruber. So when he arrived at the baker's early one morning to pick up their supply of buns and met his best friend coming out, he could hardly believe his eyes. Such a thing had never happened before. "I've closed my shop for the day," explained Mr. Gruber. "It's a long time since we had one of our outings. Jonathan and Judy might like to come along too. It will be their last chance before going back to school." Paddington needed no second bidding, and he headed back home to number 32 Windsor Gardens as fast as his legs would carry him. They get to go on an outing before they go back to school for the fall. The Browns' housekeeper, Mrs. Bird, was as excited as anyone, and they ended up making so many sandwiches, Paddington had a job closing the lid of his suitcase. "Bears always fall on their feet," she said. In no time at all, they were on their way. "Where do you think we're going?" whispered Judy. "You will find out soon enough," was all Mr. Gruber would say. "Wait and see." It was a long journey right across London, but suddenly they turned a corner and came to a stop. "It's the Tower of London!" chorused Jonathan and Judy excitedly. While Mr. Gruber went to collect the tickets to go in, Paddington took a closer look. It's a big tower and a castle. "I've never seen anything quite so big," he said to the man at the security check. "And I've never seen so many marmalade sandwiches," said the man, looking into his suitcase. He was about to feel underneath them, but he thought better of it. "That man didn't find my secret compartment," called Paddington as he hurried after the others. "Shh!" hissed Judy. She pointed to a man in a dark blue uniform standing nearby. "That's a yeoman of the guard. They're called Beefeaters, and they keep a lookout for anything suspicious." "I hope you didn't hear what I said," exclaimed Paddington, addressing the Beefeater. "No," said the man, "I can't say as I did." Paddington was most relieved. He raised his hat politely, and as he did so, something fell out and landed on the man's highly polished boots. "It's a marmalade sandwich," he explained. "I couldn't get them all in my suitcase. You can have that one if you like. I expect it will make a change from beef." "A marmalade sandwich?" repeated the yeoman. He looked down at his boots, but by the time he looked up, Paddington had already disappeared. Whoops. "That was an arrow squeak," said Jonathan as Paddington joined the others. Judy pointed toward a huge black bird. "If you ask me, that raven has gotten his eye on a marmalade sandwich too." "Perhaps," suggested Mr. Gruber hastily, "we should visit the crown jewels." That sounds exciting. Let's see. Paddington thought it was a very good idea until he saw the queue going in. "I will never see over all those heads," he said. "Don't worry, Mr. Brown," called Mr. Gruber. "Follow me." And he led them on to a moving walkway where they had a good view of all the exhibits as they glided past them. Paddington was very impressed. "They've thought of everything at the tower," he said. "I've never been on a moving floor before," said Paddington. As they reached the end of it, "I wouldn't mind going around again." "I don't think we would be very popular if we did that," said Mr. Gruber. He pointed to another display case instead. "That's the Imperial Crown of India. It has over 6,000 diamonds, but the Queen never uses it." "I'm not surprised," said Paddington. "There's nowhere to keep her sandwiches. She ought to have a hat like mine." Would you like a hat to keep your sandwiches in? The next exhibit was a huge golden bowl the size of a small bathtub. "That was for holding wine," explained Mr. Gruber. "I don't suppose you had anything like that in Darkest Peru." "We had a big bath in the Home for Retired Bears," said Paddington, "except it wasn't made of gold, and there was a big queue for it on Friday nights." He licked his lips. "They made cocoa in it for the rest of the week." Mr. Gruber took the hint. "I think it's time for our elevenses," he said. "That's funny," said Jonathan as they made their way outside. "There are 3 ravens now." Paddington eyed the birds uneasily as they waddled towards him. "Look," said Judy, pointing straight ahead. The Ravens' tea house. We must be near where they live. I wonder if they have a bear's tea house, said Paddington. I doubt it, said Mr. Gruber. In the old days, there were lots of wild animals at the tower, lions and tigers and such like, but there aren't any more. They all went to Regent's Park Zoo. I think I'll just have a small lemonade, if I may, Mr. Gruber, said Paddington. They might have left a lion behind by mistake. By now, 2 more ravens had joined the others, making 5 in all. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They must be after something, said Mr. Gruber. I wonder what it can possibly be. While he was talking, a 6th raven landed. I think he's after your sandwich. Oh, there's number 6. Paddington, warned Jonathan. Paddington gave the bird a hard stare. And he was about to shoo it away when he heard a familiar voice. There he is, said the beefeater, addressing a gray-haired gentleman. I'd know him anywhere. Blue duffel coat, red hat, suitcase. Oh dear, said Judy, as the man came towards their table. What now? Paddington felt his knees turn to jelly. But the gray-haired gentleman was all smiles. I didn't know ravens like marmalade, he said. The Tower of London is famous for its ravens, but there is a legend which says if ever they fly away, it will fall down. So anything that stops that happening is most welcome. I have been instructed to present you with a special ticket that will enable you to visit us from now on, whenever you like, free of charge. You will need proof of identity, warned the beefeater. Otherwise, you won't be allowed in. I think his suitcase will do the trick, said the man. There can't be many people who carry a case full of marmalade sandwiches around with them. I'm sure Mrs. Bird can arrange that, said Mr. Gruber. What do you think, Mr. Brown? I think, said Paddington, I had better start work straight away. It has been such a lovely day out, I must make sure the tower doesn't fall down before we come again. Caw, caw, said the ravens. Caw, caw. Oh, they were excited about the marmalade sandwiches. Nope. And that's the end. Paddington says goodbye. So that is our second Paddington Bear story for the week, and I've got a couple more for you coming up, so stay tuned this week.